So I'm just gonna eat Jello and talk about some of the books I read. This is probably gonna be an unedited YouTube video because it's gonna be long and it might not even need any editing, or it probably does need editing, but I'm just not gonna do it, or I'm not doing it, but you know, it's the Jello. If you're asking why I'm eating Jello, it's because I have my teeth pulled and I can't eat shit, so Jello it is. Anyways, so I read a couple books. Here's like the pile this month. A little bit of, maybe eating is not the move because it's kind of hard. Okay, so the first book that I read, this was a while back, but I just wanted to talk about it because it's kind of like in the same theme of the two other books that I read, and I have one more book that I don't have. So disclaimer, and I've said this before, I'm dyslexic, so I tend to say things wrong, so please give me grace. So Metamorphosis by Kafka, and this one took me about like 2 hours, I think. It was really, really good. I think it made me cry, actually. I think I was just very like, it hit a chord with me because I'm the oldest daughter too, so I felt like it's something I could relate to. I had a lot of sympathy, empathy towards the family and towards the main character, and it was just like a very, why am I even going to talk about books when I don't even know how to explain them? Basically, this book is about some guy who wakes up and he turns into a bug, and his life is like turned upside down, and then we follow the story of him and like what happens to him and his family. But there's just so much more like underlining themes and like topics that it's just sugar coated by just him turning into a bug, but there's just so much more, so much heaviness in the book that I loved and that I could relate to. And it's written in such a way where you can understand. It's not a hard book to read. And I talked to my friend about it, and he read it and he had a different take on it, and he felt like the main character was very selfish and what he did was wrong, like turning into a bug and all this stuff. And I had a different take. I was like, I had a lot of empathy and sympathy for the main character, and I felt bad for him. And we were like talking back and forth, and he agreed he didn't have that perspective. And yeah, it was just such a good read, and it's so easy to read. I recommend to read this one. The Stranger by Camus. Somebody corrected me, but I forgot already. Camus. Wait, this guy. And this was a really good read. It also took me, how long did this take me? This didn't take me long. I think it took me like 3 hours to read. This was a really good book. So in this book we follow the main character, and it begins with he's attending his mom's funeral, and then we follow him, and certain things happen towards like in the story. And it's really weird because it's like, I always have to remind myself that books like this that are like older, like this and with Kurt Vonnegut and stuff, they're really slow. So the beginning is a little boring, and then slowly we start getting into like, okay, what everything is happening. And this was one of those books where it's like, it's really like detailed about like the situations going on around. It's like I could really see it in my head, like play it out like a movie. Like it was really, really well written. I loved the main character. I felt like the theme of this book is very much like the Kurt Vonnegut books that I'm going to talk about, and it's kind of like the meaning of life and stuff like that, and like the human experience. And this book kind of like opens your eyes And I had seen a picture on Pinterest where it said like, it was like this chunk of the book, like big chunk of the middle of the book was like, damn, he don't give a fuck. And then the end, he was like, oh, now he's feeling stuff. And it was funny because when I was reading it, that made sense. And towards the end, it was weird because I have never read a book where it gave me like anxiety, and I felt extreme anxiety on the little bit in the end, because that's like, I felt like I could be there with him, like what he was experiencing. I felt like I was there, so I was getting like really, really anxious and overwhelmed. But it was such a good read. I actually liked this one so much that I made my husband read it, and he read it, and he also really liked it. And it didn't take long for him to read, and he's like he's not a slow reader, but I'm faster than him, and it took him around the same time, and he really liked it too. So there's this book, the Kurt Vonnegut books. So I have a Slaughterhouse-five, and then I have Sirens of Titan, which I don't have with me. My husband actually took it with him on a trip, and he's reading that one. But that book is one of my favorite books of all time. I feel like everybody should read that book. I cried so much in that book. It was like such a humbling human experience reading that book, and the way Vonnegut was able to describe things and come up with such a world to explain, like, I don't know, it's hard to explain because I don't know how to explain things without ruining the book, because I really want you guys to go read them, so it's hard. So I'm gonna talk about this one, and then I'll talk about the other one. So this one's Slaughterhouse-five, and this one we follow, so basically it's Kurt. He wants to write a book about the war that he was a part of. So in the beginning, he contacts his friend who was also in the war, and they try to reminisce and remember what was happening in the war. And then and then the story begins, and we follow the main character and how he's kind of like time traveling through memories, like flashback, like PTSD of the war, and that's basically the story that we're reading through. His memories, his life, and how things unfolded. And this is an anti-war book, but it was really, really well written. I loved it. It really like made me, I've never read a war book, and this is like the first one I've ever read. I've read some World War II, like of the Holocaust, but this was like one where I was a soldier, where you're like a soldier, so it was kind of a different experience and a different perspective that, you know, Americans are usually fed a different type of perspective, so this one was a lot. It's a very heavy book. You know, afterwards, when I finished reading this one, I was kind of sat there feeling a little like I'm supposed to move on after reading this. Like, this was one of those books where I was looking out at the sky and nothing kind of was there with my thoughts, because I was just like, okay, I'm just gonna move on, I guess. This is an amazing book. I want to read more of his works because he's absolutely amazing. I love him. And then the other book, which is Sirens of Titan. And that one, the best way I can describe it is kind of like Dr. Manhattan meets sci-fi, Cold War. That's also kind of another anti-war book. It's really, really good. I loved it. It's also another very heavy book. There was a part in the middle of the book that I had to put down and not read for a while because it had a very sensitive topic. Trigger warning for people. It had mention of SA, and that was really hard for me to read. I'm not a fan of reading that stuff, so I had to put the book down. But I'm very glad that I was able to finish the book and continue reading it because it was such an amazing read. And then towards the end, I was bawling my eyes out, and it was just such a phenomenal experience to read that book. I wish everybody can read it. It was very, it's hard to explain. Like, I've read millions of other books, but I've never had a book like that that spoke to me on like a soul level, like a human level, that it was very, I think everybody should read that book. I'm forever going to recommend that book to anybody who asks me for book recommendations. They need to read that one. So it was Sirens of Titan by Kurt Vonnegut. And it's about the same length as this one. Oh, this one took me about like 6 hours to read, I think. Yeah, something like that, like 6 hours, maybe less. And the other one took me a little longer because I was taking breaks and stuff and I had to stop. So that one took me a couple days. And then the next book I read was You Should Have Left by Daniel. I'm not even going to try and pronounce his last name. You guys saw me purchase this one and The Stranger on my other vlog, but this book is about, this is supposed to be like a suspense horror, I think. I've never read a book like this. Like, this was like the first my introduction to this type of genre, which is why it's small, because I wanted to like be able to get through it and kind of, you know, dip my toes into the genre. And there was a movie of this too, and which I watched it with my husband. My husband also read this one, and we liked the movie and we liked the book too. So in this book, we follow a screenwriter and his wife and their 4-year-old daughter, and they end up wanting to take a trip, and they go and rent a house, but the house keeps changing. Like, the rooms aren't where they are, pictures aren't where they are, hallways seem longer, and like things keep just coming up, and something's weird, something's happening in the house. And then he's a screenwriter, so he's writing everything in his journal, and he notices that there's certain words and certain things that he didn't write, but that is his handwriting, saying things like "get out," "you should have left," stuff like that. And there was a part in the book in the beginning where things kind of like start getting a little bit more like intense. That gave me chills, because I really felt like if I was in that situation, that would have like spooked me. But the book wasn't too scary. It was just like ooh. And this one, you read it, it reads like a movie. Like, it's literally like, it's written in his journal, so we're reading his journal, but it plays out like a movie. So it's a really good book, easy read. This one also took me like not even an hour, like less than an hour. It took my husband less than an hour too. So this is a quick read, really, really good. And yeah, so there's this one. And then I went to a local bookstore that I didn't know opened up, and I was just looking by, and I had to buy something because I didn't want to just show up and like browse and not buy anything. And you know, I wanted to support the local people here. This is good. This is strawberry, sugar free. It's only like 10 calories the whole thing. Anyways, and I saw this one, Skull Daddy, and I thought it was funny, but surprisingly this was a really good read. And I didn't think it was spooky, but after I read it, I kept thinking about it like the next 2 nights following, and I realized like this is a pretty spooky book. So in this book, we follow this couple who have a little girl, and they move into a new house. And in the new house, it's around Halloween, and then they get some Halloween decorations, and that's where we are introduced to Skull Daddy. And it's like a Halloween decoration, or so we think, right? And the little girl wants it placed in her room, and after it's placed in her room, a lot of weird things are happening, and you know, we follow them. And this one is written in a sense of like time skips, so it's really quickly, like everything happens really fast, but it's happening in like months, things that are just like it's like gradually happening, but we're reading it in month times, so it's like fast. and creepier things start happening, and people are getting sick, and I don't want to spoil anything, but the ending really got to me because I was just like, I did not expect that, but it was a really good ending. I thought that the way she ended it was amazing. I think she ended it amazing, but I'm just one of those people that like, I want to know what happened next, but I think the way she ended it was perfect. So this is a really, really good read. It didn't take me anything. It took me like maybe 45 minutes, maybe less than that, to read this. It was a very quick read. Really, really good. I recommend this one. And then the last book that I read recently is called Bunny. This is a very popular book on TikTok and stuff like that. I was at the bookstore, and I was just like browsing, and then like I just love bunnies, so I was just like, you know what, let me just grab the book because I just think it's so cute. And I had this in my shelf for a long time. I never picked it up. I never read it. I was just like, I started it, and then I just wasn't getting into it, and I was just like, I don't know, it's just not my type of book, right? But I was just like, fuck it, let me just read it, let me get it. And I read it all in one day, and it was amazing. I loved it. This was such a good book. Oh my god. So basically we follow the main character, who is she's like in her master's program, and in the master's program there's a group of girls who are like in a clique, and they call each other Bunny. They greet each other as Bunny, and one day she's just invited to join the bunnies, and then we follow her life through that, and the culty weird vibes of this situation and what's happening. But if you really read the book and you kind of like digest it a little bit, you can kind of understand or where the book is gonna go. So I wasn't that shocked with like the ending. It wasn't a big twist because I could see the underlining themes of the book, and I could see where it was going or what was happening or how the character was and stuff like that. So it wasn't a big surprise to me, but it still hit me the same. Like this was one of those books where after I was reading it, like I was so in my head when I was reading it. Like I was in this world, and I was with her during all these things. Like I was there. Like it was, you know, like my brain would not know any different, that whether I read I was just reading it or I was living it out, because I was that deep in this book. And there's like a point in the end of the book where I had music, so I was listening to music, and when it's like the big moment of the book, right? And I was listening to Casual by Chappell Ronan, and I felt like it just went so good with like what was happening and the sadness of the underlining themes of the song and what was happening in the book. And I was just like there, and I was like, oh my god, I'm going through this with her, and I'm experiencing, I could see the movie scene play out. It was just so crazy. And then once I was done with the book, I was like, I want to go back in there. Like I want to go back in the world, because I had such a good time being there and reading the story and the things that was happening. I just had so much fun that I just wanted to be back in that world. So this was an amazing read. I might actually reread this one again, because it was just, it's such a, I would call it like a comfort read. It was just such a good, like, this is a good book kind of thing. So it was really good. And that's basically the last book that I read. I don't have any, well, there's other books right back. These are the recent books that I have read that was this month and maybe a little bit of last month, minus the Metamorphosis that I read like a long time ago. I just wanted to talk about that one. But yeah, so those were my reads. I really want to get some, I read some romance books too, but I don't want to talk about those because they're very niche, and I don't know if I want to lay out my dirty laundry like that. So, but I do want to go to Barnes & Noble to get some more books to read, but I just don't know what, because I'm like now that I'm dabbling different genres besides romance or nonfiction, because I have some nonfiction books that I have read too, but I'll probably talk about those books in a separate video, because those are just like very niche books that, you know, they're nonfiction. So, but yeah, I want to try and check out some other books, maybe some I see some YouTubers who talk about like their book recommendations, and I kind of want to read those. I want to read a lot of more classic books that like are like, you need to read this one, like The Stranger is one of those books that, and Metamorphosis. So I love reading books like that, and I love like trying, or at least trying to analyze them, because like I'm not that smart, but you know, I like trying to learn, trying to like open my brain to things like that. So, but yeah, that was basically it. I'll probably end the video now because there's nothing else to talk about. That's just it. I killed 20 minutes of my day. But yeah, if you like this video, let me know and I'll make more. And if you don't, also let me know and I can delete this one. I just need advice on video content ideas and stuff. Alright. Well, also please subscribe, because I really want to go live, and I can't go live if I have only a little bit of subscribers. I need at least 50. So guys, can you get me to 50 so I can live stream? Okay,